At the restaurant, my sister raised her glass and announced loud enough for everyone to hear. "Go find another table. This one's for family, not adopted girls." Laughter erupted. My mother didn't stop her. My father just looked away. And as their laughter echoed, I stared at the $3,270 bill the waiter placed in front of me for their dinner. I smiled. Took a sip of my water. Pulled out my black card. And paid. But as I stood to leave, heels clicking on the marble floor, a single thought burned in my mind. They just humiliated the wrong girl. I was adopted when I was 6. My memories of before that age are a blur of rain-soaked streets, hunger, and cold hands. My parents, or rather, the people who adopted me, told everyone they saved me out of kindness. But as I grew older, I realized I was never really part of their family. They liked the idea of rescuing someone. It made them look generous. But behind closed doors, I was just a charity project. My sister, the one who embarrassed me that night, was their biological daughter. 2 years younger, spoiled, and used to being the center of attention. When I got a scholarship to a top university while she barely scraped by, the distance between us became a canyon. But I never fought back. I learned to stay quiet, to play the long game. When I graduated, I didn't just get a job, I built something. I started my own tech consultancy from scratch. Long nights, coffee instead of sleep, rejection after rejection. But one investor took a chance on me. Within 5 years, I owned offices in 3 cities. The family didn't know. They never asked. To them, I was still the adopted one, the one they pitted at Christmas, the one they ignored at family photos. Then came the dinner. It was supposed to be my parents' 30th wedding anniversary. I was the one who booked the restaurant, a rooftop place overlooking the entire city. Every table had crystal chandeliers above, gold cutlery, live violins. I made sure it would be perfect. I even sent the invitations myself. When I arrived, they were already seated, laughing, drinking, living their perfect little life. I walked up with a gift in my hand, a framed photo from the day they adopted me, the only one where we looked like a real family. My sister spotted me first. Her face twisted into that familiar smirk. "Oh, you came," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Didn't know you could afford this place." I smiled. "You're welcome. I booked it." She blinked, clearly not expecting that. But then she turned back to her friends. She'd invited half her social circle. When I went to sit down beside my parents, she leaned closer and said the words that still echo in my head. "This table's for family. Not adopted girls." The entire table laughed. Even my father, though he tried to hide it behind his glass. Something inside me broke that night, but not in a way that made me weak. It broke in a way that let the light in. Because as the laughter faded and the waiter placed that enormous bill in front of me, I realized I wasn't powerless anymore. They thought I was still the same girl who begged for affection. They had no idea who I'd become. When the waiter came, I nodded toward the bill and said, "It's fine. Put it on my card." My sister gasped. "Wait, you're paying for everyone?" "Of course," I said, voice calm and even. "It's a family dinner, right?" The waiter took my card, swiped it, and handed me the receipt. I signed it slowly, watching the total flash on the screen. $3,270. No discounts. No hesitation. I could feel my sister's eyes burning holes in me. Her friends were whispering now. When I stood to leave, I looked at her and said softly, "Don't worry. You'll pay me back one day." And with that, I walked away. But that was just the beginning. A week later, I got a call from my company's PR manager. Apparently, a luxury clothing brand had reached out. They wanted to partner with me for a campaign highlighting women entrepreneurs who built themselves from nothing. Guess who managed the brand's social media and PR division? My sister. The same sister who said I wasn't family. When I walked into their office for the first meeting, her face drained of color. She hadn't even looked up from her desk until I said, "Hey there. I think we've met." The room went silent. Her boss turned to her and said, "Wait, you two know each other?" I smiled. "Oh, yes. She's family." I could see her jaw clench, her fake smile forming. But I didn't expose her, not yet. I let the tension build, like a storm on the horizon. That night, I drafted an email to the CEO. I laid out my campaign proposal, one that would require direct collaboration with their PR head. Meaning, her. I could have chosen anyone else. But revenge tastes better when it's served cold and painfully slow. For weeks, we worked together. She hated every moment. I could tell by the way she avoided eye contact, the way she clenched her jaw whenever someone complimented me. Her coworkers adored me. They called me brilliant, inspiring, humble. She called me lucky. The day before the campaign launch, I invited the entire team to dinner, at the same restaurant where she'd humiliated me. I even booked the same table. When everyone arrived, she walked in last. She froze when she saw me sitting in her old seat. I looked up and said, "Oh, this one's for family." Her eyes widened, and for the first time in years, she had nothing to say. The air inside the restaurant shimmered with golden light, just like the night they humiliated me. The same violinist played softly in the corner, the same waiter recognized me and nodded politely. But this time, I wasn't a guest. I was the host. Everyone from the brand's executive team was there, all dressed sharp, toasting to a successful collaboration. And there she was, sitting stiffly at the end of the table, pretending to be busy on her phone. My sister. She didn't know yet what was coming. When the appetizers were served, I stood up with my glass raised and said, "I just want to thank everyone here for trusting me with this project. It's been an honor to work with such talented people." Everyone clapped. Cameras flashed. The CEO gave me a nod of approval. Then, I turned toward her, the girl who once said I wasn't family. "And a special thanks," I continued, "to the person who first introduced me to this restaurant years ago. You might not remember it, but that night changed my life." She froze. Her hand tightened around her wine glass. Her colleagues turned to her, curious. I smiled. That was the night I learned what kind of woman I wanted to become. Independent. Unapologetic. And above all, unbreakable. A soft murmur spread across the table. I could see the realization dawning in her eyes. She whispered, "Don't do this." I tilted my head. "Do what?" "Thank you?" Everyone laughed politely, unaware of the razor edge under my words. But I wasn't finished. Not yet. The campaign launch the next morning was a success. Our faces were plastered on billboards, mine in the center, hers at the edge, a supporting name in tiny font. But that wasn't my doing. That was Karma's quiet touch. Later that afternoon, her boss called me for a private meeting. Apparently, there were internal concerns about how she'd handled certain PR documents. I knew what that meant. She'd been careless, distracted, maybe even jealous enough to sabotage something. I didn't lift a finger. I didn't need to. The cracks were forming on their own. By the end of the week, she was temporarily suspended pending review. And the review? It was handled by an external consultant. Me. When I walked into the boardroom to discuss her case, she was already there, sitting small in a corner, avoiding my gaze. Her voice was low, trembling. "Why are you doing this?" I sat down across from her. "Doing what?" She looked up, her eyes glassy. "Destroying me." I leaned back, letting silence hang heavy between us. "Funny. That's exactly what you tried to do that night at the restaurant. Remember? Go find another table, this one's for family." She flinched. "I didn't mean it," she whispered. I smiled softly. "You did. And that's okay. You were right, I wasn't part of your family. But now, you're part of my world. And in my world, words have consequences." Tears welled in her eyes. "Please, just tell them it's a misunderstanding." I looked at her, really looked at her. For the first time, I didn't see a sister. I saw the reflection of everything I'd survived: rejection, loneliness, humiliation. "I don't need to tell them anything," I said quietly. "Your actions speak for themselves." Then I stood up and walked away, the same way I had that night, years ago. I thought that would be the end. But life had one more twist waiting for me. A few days later, my mother called. Her voice was sharp, the same cold tone I remembered from childhood. "What did you do to your sister?" I sighed. "You mean your daughter?" "She's miserable," she snapped. "She says you embarrassed her, cost her her job." "She embarrassed herself," I said. "And she lost her job because of her own behavior." My mother's voice softened suddenly, almost pleading. "You've made your point. You're successful now. Isn't that enough?" She's family, for God's sake. I let out a bitter laugh. That's the word you all love, isn't it? Family. The one you used to throw around while reminding me I didn't belong. There was silence on the other end. Then, quietly, she said, we made mistakes. But can't you forgive us? I paused. The old me would have folded, desperate for their approval. But I wasn't that girl anymore. I already did, I said. That's why I never told anyone what you did. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. Or letting people walk all over me again. And then, before hanging up, I added. Next time you want a family dinner, pay for it yourselves. Months passed. My company grew even bigger. The brand campaign went viral. And one morning, while I was at a conference in New York, I saw her name in the news. She'd been caught embezzling small amounts from the company's influencer fund. Her new employer fired her immediately. I didn't gloat. I didn't even call. I just closed the article and looked out the hotel window at the skyline. That's when it hit me, revenge wasn't about hurting them. It was about showing them what they lost when they pushed me away. But fate, it seemed, wasn't done with me yet. A year later, I got an invitation in the mail. It was for my parents' vow renewal ceremony, 31 years this time. I almost threw it away. But then I noticed something. The invitation wasn't addressed to our daughter. It was addressed to me, with my full name, in my mother's handwriting. Against my better judgment, I went. The ceremony was held at their house, the same one I'd grown up in. Everything looked smaller now, the furniture, the garden, even them. When I walked in, my father smiled awkwardly. My mother hugged me with trembling hands. And then she appeared. My sister. Her eyes were swollen, makeup smeared from crying. She looked at me, then looked away. No snide remarks this time. No laughter. Just silence. After the ceremony, my mother pulled me aside. She wants to talk to you. I nodded slowly. We stood in the backyard, surrounded by fairy lights and soft music. For a long time, neither of us spoke. Then, she said, voice breaking. I lost everything. I said nothing. She looked up, tears streaming down. I was jealous. I thought they loved you more. You were smarter, stronger, everything I wasn't. I hated you for it. I shouldn't have said those things that night. Her voice cracked. I'm sorry. For a moment, I wanted to say something cruel, to remind her how much it had hurt. But looking at her, I realized she'd already been punished enough. I forgive you, I said quietly. But I won't forget. She nodded, tears falling faster. That's fair. Then she whispered, you paid our bill that night. Let me pay this one. She handed me a folded check. Inside was a donation to a foundation I'd started, one that helped adopted kids get scholarships. I looked at her, stunned. You didn't have to. I did, she interrupted. Because you were right. Family isn't about blood. It's about who stands with you when no one else does. That night, as I drove home, I finally felt something I hadn't in years: his peace. Not the kind that comes from revenge, but the kind that comes from closure. I realized the restaurant, the humiliation, the pain, all of it had shaped me into who I was. And even though they'd tried to break me, they'd unknowingly built the strongest version of me instead. When I reached home, I took out that old framed photo, the one from the day they adopted me. For the first time, I didn't see strangers pretending to be a family. I saw a scared little girl who found her place in the world, even when no one offered her one. I smiled and whispered to her reflection. You made it. Then, I placed the photo on my desk beside a new one, from the campaign launch, surrounded by my team. My real family. Sometimes, the people who hurt you the most are the ones who teach you your greatest strength. Sometimes, the table that once rejected you becomes yours to own. That night at the restaurant wasn't my humiliation, it was my awakening. And when the waiter said, just a moment, please, before handing me that $3,270 bill, I didn't realize he was giving me something priceless. A reason to rise. Because I may have been the adopted girl once. But now, I'm the woman who built her own name and made the world remember it.